we will open the select board meeting for August 21st. We are being broadcast live and digitally recorded. Is anybody here for open session? No, there is not. So, Ryan, we have some announcements, or a announcement?
We do. So the Dinghy Dash, as people know, is this Saturday. If people aren't aware what the Dinghy Dash is, our special events coordinator organized this event last year. People make boats out of cardboard, which doesn't make sense unless you see it. All you can use is cardboard and duct tape. Throw them in the pond and see who wins. So prizes are given out for fastest vessel, most creative, best or most dramatic sink, etc. Just one of our great events. It was in the Gardner News today. It's getting a lot of fanfare.
It was in the TNG as well.
Yeah,
I
yesterday.
saw that, yeah.
It was in the TNG.
The big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's bookie this year? Pat, you bookie this year? Taking bets on? No. I'm just kidding. But I think it's going to be well attended.
It is.
It's got a lot of publicity this year.
So I think just inviting anyone who's watching this to check out the Dinghy Dash, one of the 5 premier events in Hubbardston every year. I think it's going to be a good one.
Okay, thank you. So, our new business here, the first item is special town meeting article. You want to go over that first?
Yes. So the first. Pull up the warrant here. So the first article is the budget. So the reason why we need to vote the budget again at the town meeting in June, annual town meeting, Hubbardston voters rejected the Quabbin Regional School District budget, and so did two of the other towns in the Quabbin, Hardwick and New Braintree. So that automatically triggers a reconsideration by the school committee. They can go up, down, or neutral with the budget, and they have 30 days to do that. They came back with a number that put Hubbardston's assessment at 6.31%. Town meeting voted a 5% assessment increase, and then the corresponding numbers for their overall budget for all 5 towns. So we have 45 days then to reconsider at our legislative body, which is town meeting again, which is why we're having a special town meeting tomorrow night, August 22nd, in order to reconsider the budget. That's Article 1.
And
So
45 days was going to be like the 26th or something like that, right? It was going to be, we're right pinned against that date.
needs to happen. So if you're watching, please come to town meeting and vote.
Yep.
So also, as part of this consideration, when you project the budget for a fiscal year, we usually do that in June. We haven't closed the prior year yet, and some of the numbers are best guesses, really good guesses in terms of what things are going to cost. As you progress into FY20, more actual costs come to be known. So things can change. We've also had some organizational changes, hiring new employees, etc. So some of the line items have changed in the budget that can either help us or hurt us, but that need to be revoted in order to find monies to fund some type of increase to the school assessment. So this evening the Finance Committee met. They've met a couple times since finding the new Quabbin school number, and they've given a recommendation as to what those line items that should be amended from the June vote in order to meet new assessments and new costs that have come to light for FY20. So it's a little confusing for people because we're in FY20 now. We're actually operating in FY20, voting on a budget that should have started on July 1. But a lot of towns are going through this because of the way state education funding came in, and everybody's trying to find the best way to do all services to town residents with limited resources. So if the board wants, I can go through what the Finance Committee recommended, or answer any questions.
I think the important thing is to understand, so that people who are watching this or at some point paying attention to it, understand that the FinCom originally had made their recommendation, and now they have a sort of a re-recommendation based on what factors. Some of those factors were new information, and some of them were a reassessment of their own views on certain things. Is that a good way to put it?
I think so, yeah.
And so maybe going through those would be a good way to do it. There's only half dozen or something overall.
Okay. So the two really big changes to the overall budget to kind of go over. So one is Lori Reed, who was the executive assistant, was promoted to town clerk, which gave us an opportunity to reassess our office hours in general. We had a very capable employee who took over part of Lori's role, but we also condensed Bobby's job as the finance clerk and the executive assistant to kind of create another efficiency and do what we've always done, which is try and find the best ways to operate for the least amount of money. So because of that, we were able to use some of that money to increase hours that were taken away as part of the FY20 budget process, while still saving some money. So there's some line items that changed based off of reorganization of staff. Also, we share now an assessing assistant, which is hired this week with the town of Rutland. This is a net positive for us, meaning it costs us less to share this employee. This employee, we're hosting the employee, so although we have less hours than Rutland, we share we have the most cost. I don't know how to explain it better than to say that we're paying the full salary, which we normally wouldn't be able to do unless we're sharing it with Rutland. So they're going to give us money in order to do that. So there's a change in the budget that comes from that, but it is a net gain to us, even though it looks a lot higher. So we have now a $30,000 line item in our assessing assistant line that used to be $13,000, but we get revenue from Rutland, which offsets that. It's kind of two big changes to the budget that need to be stated to start. So in this recommended budget, just going by line item, the cuts that the FinCom has recommended in order to hit the new number. So the new number for Quabbin Regional School District that they are asking for is $4,751,988. That's
When you
their
say they, you mean the schools.
the school's certified assessment,
Yep.
saying this is what the towns need to pay. That created, based off all the changes I just discussed and everything I kind of set up there on the table, a $44,000 deficit.
And if I could just jump in real quick, their revision, just to go back to some of the reasons why, their revision was not based on cuts to their services per se, but it was based on realized savings for insurance and other sorts of things that since the first time they had given us, or whatever time it was they'd given us an assessment, those had come up since then. So it wasn't as if they went through a round of cuts necessarily, it was realized gains.
So we, by law, need to present a balanced budget to the town. So tomorrow, at special town meeting, the FinCom is recommending that, although Quabbin Regional School District did drop their number, the town is going to fall short of the new assessment number, while still coming really far up from the 5% that was authorized at town meeting. So that new number would be $4,737,695, or let's just do math real quick. Approximately 14,000 less than what Quabbin Regional School District has added. So $1 less than what the school asked triggers a rejection of the budget. So if this recommendation is taken by town meeting voters and is recommended by the board, which has not been decided yet, the another town would have to also reject the budget in order for it to be valid, a valid rejection of the budget to be reconsidered.
So what's the new deviance now?
15,000.
14,000.
So we're $14,000 is what we got to come up with, wasn't it? 43,000 or something?
So, based off some other cuts that I'm going to go over, plus falling 14,000 short, we get to a balanced budget. So with all the other cuts we're considering, still 14,000 short of the assessment, we are balanced in terms of recommendation.
And
So-
that's the new 6.31%.
It is
594, I think.
would be a little over 6%.
That's
They asked for 6.31.
631 is what the school's asking for. The 14
Mhm.
deficit is what the FinCom has now come to.
So we're still not there.
No.
Right.
But to come up to that level, other cuts, $500 from the select board expense account. The increase, but not full amount of the school assessment. A little under $12,000 taken from the road maintenance account. That was money earmarked for repairs that would have been done in conjunction to Chapter 90 money, plus potholes, other materials. General highway, this is used for building maintenance, employee support, other items, is reduced by $2,000.
They have to fill the potholes. They gotta fill the potholes.
That has to happen regardless of how much we cut. It's required.
Ryan, the 5% and the 6.31%, what's the dollar difference there? Do you have
Between
that
what we
number?
approved at town meeting and
Yeah.
it's 191,000 and change.
191,000 was okay. And then with all the cuts and changes to the budget, it winds up being, you got it down to 43.
14,000.
Or
No,
14.
Well, the change in the assessment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
No,
I'm sorry.
What is it to a Hubbardston is means? So
Yeah,
from
yeah.
5% to 6.31,
Oh, okay, I
that's the
apologize.
43 or 44,000.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
about 48,000 per percent, so
Right.
60-ish, 60,000. I can get you an exact number. Let's see. I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. But that's more into scale, Jimmy.
It's approximately 60 to 70,000. That's that difference.
That's the difference between the 5% and the 6.31%.
Yes. It's a $4.8 million budget, so 1% is approximately 48,000.
Is the $4.8 million budget just Quabbin, or is it all schools? That's not including Monty
That's
Tech.
just
4.8 is
our
just us.
Quabbin assessment.
Just our Quabbin assessment. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then, and I apologize, everyone. This is really confusing for everyone as we try and do this.
Yep.
A lot of towns are going through it. So then, the other cut that was made, we did a pretty hardy analysis of our health insurance. So health insurance, we are required to give health insurance to our employees, and we pay a little over 65. We pay 65% of the cost for our employees. The employees carry 35,000. Not all of our
35%.
employees take insurance. 35%, not thousand. Not all of our employees take the insurance, but they could at any time. So it's a tough number to predict. It's also tough for the schools. They do this as well. The primary savings that they realized in order to drop their assessment number was from this insurance calculation that we're also doing. So our bill right now is about 11,000 a month. It's about 130,000. We're adding a full-time employee, which brings us to about 145,000, which gives us enough room to add one more person if we put our health insurance at 165,000. So you want to have a cushion in there. It's not one of these things that you just put at the dollar, because if two people change, we'd be in a lot of trouble. But we did reduce the cushion down $9,000 from what we said we would do at town meeting,
Okay.
which puts us in a more precarious position, but I'm comfortable recommending that I don't think it'll be a problem this year, and we'll be able to absorb a fairly decent increase on January 1st, which is when the new number comes in, expecting somewhere between 5 and 10% increase in cost. So those changes all equated with a rejection of the full new assessment to a balanced budget. That's what the FinCom is recommending to the town for tomorrow's vote. I expect there to be questions. Those
Will it be explained tomorrow, assuming that the question comes from the floor? What are some of the drawbacks or the negatives if we in fact turn down, and say no? What are the options, or what are the possible danger things? I'm talking, what my understanding is, after a certain period of time, if it went all the way to December,
Yeah.
goes to the state and they can decide, and just say you pay this,
So-
and that's it, we have no. So will that be brought out tomorrow night? Because I think it's important that people realize, what the negatives of this action could be.
So that's a good question. So
Let's start with, if I can just jump in real quick. Let's start with number one. Number one option is, if we say the town approves this new FinCom recommended number, but New Braintree votes and Hardwick vote to accept the new number from the school, then we pay what they told us to, because 4 out of 5 already made it. So that's sort of scenario number one, is regardless of what we do, if the other towns during this second iteration of special town meeting happens, then it doesn't really matter. Okay.
So scenario 2, I guess, would be if another town
And we need another town meeting then to sort of
To fix that.
fix the budget, right?
Mhm.
So we do another
you'd
time.
have to balance. So we would
Yep.
be 14,000-ish out of balance. We'd have to have a special town meeting and find more cuts. So based off where we are in the budget, those cuts mean even more road money, probably a couple employee hours, and some, cuts to expense accounts and just other things that our very lean budget can't really handle, but we'd have to.
Doomsday.
The doomsday, if you wanna call it that. I know that seems funny, like 14,000 is that doomsday, but our budget's at a point, just made it as lean as possible. There's really nothing left to regionalize. There's just not a lot left to cut without asking voters to pay more taxes, which they've clearly stated in several votes since I've been here that they don't wanna do. So we're just out of revenue and we're out of budget room. So any cut at this point is making our very lean budget in kind of a dangerous situation in case anything goes poor, which is the argument we made at town meeting and I've made several times to the school committee. And they have similar challenges because no one has enough resources. So if another town rejected the budget, so let's say New Braintree or Hardwick also rejected this new budget, then the same process happens again. So the school committee could reconsider this budget within 30 days. They could come down to everyone else's number and then that's good. Or if they came in at a different number, then town meeting would have to consider it again unless we ran out of time. And by that I mean on December 1st, the state says that's enough. Obviously there's gonna be no agreement between school and town, so we're gonna set the budget. And DESE, Department of Education, comes in and says this is what the new budget will be. No higher than what the school committee recommended, no lower than what the towns are recommending, somewhere usually in between.
So there would be enough time to do that. Not that we wanna do another process here, but based on if it's August 22nd and they have 30 days, that's around September 22nd, and then we have a certain amount of time to set up another town meeting, we could do that before December 1st.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Spending
if-
a couple of grand each time we do a town meeting.
So if the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education comes in, did I just hear you say that it can't be any higher than the 6.31 and can't be any lower than the 5%?
So I would have to research for sure to say that, but I've never seen it. So in my
Never seen it.
experience,
You've never seen that experience, or you've never seen?
they wouldn't say you're gonna pay more than the school said you would or less than the town said. It's gonna be some type of mediation between the two numbers.
Okay.
Or they could say the schools are right, or they could say the towns are right.
Right.
I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's good. I mean, it's a moot point if another town doesn't jump on board with us, though,
Right.
right? I mean, that's.
Yep.
And they're going through these same deliberations right now.
But they're not in the same situation we are because their contribution percentage didn't go up so much, as I understand, and did in fact Hewlett Town's contribution percentage go down?
Yes.
But that
So
doesn't.
the likelihood of them jumping on board with us is pretty slim in all reality.
So New Braintree is actually facing a similar assessment jump as we are.
Okay.
I guess I would contend that, just in our experience with talking to other towns, is even if their assessment didn't necessarily go up from last year, that doesn't mean that they still agree that they should be paying that much. Regardless of whether it went up a percentage or not, it still could be more than they think they could afford. So I think that they're going through those discussions.
Another question I was concerned about, or that might possibly come up. If, let's say, another town does go along, let's say we turn it down and another town does so, how does this directly affect the school year that's gonna start next Tuesday? In terms of how is that gonna affect the kids this year? But because we'll be going month by month until this is decided, because I think some of the parents may ask that too, what are they gonna lose? What will be cut because the school department can't spend a certain amount of money?
So we have paid the first quarter of our assessment. So what we paid last year in the first quarter, we paid this year, which allows the school to operate in the first quarter. The reason why December is kind of the stopgap is that's enough time to make sure that the year is fully funded. In terms of impact of these new cuts that may or may not have to happen, and that's for the schools to say. I don't know.
So the school,
But there
what-
could be something.
Well, what they have to do, if I could just jump in, what they have to do is they have to go back to last year's approved budget, divide that by 12,
Mhm.
and start so any amount of increase, which was the 1.9%, I think is what their total increase was from last year's budget, goes away temporarily, and they have to go back to the previous year, divide it by 12, and start using that as their 1/12 budget. So to Ryan's point, we have no idea what, if any, sort of cuts that would occur right away.
And it's important to note that the municipal side, and this isn't a schools versus municipal, it's just kind of explaining it to
Yeah.
situations. So we're operating that way too. So we did approve some employee hour changes, et cetera, that we're just not sure are gonna happen.
Thick.
So we're holding back employees and we're holding back some services right now, not really knowing what the budget's gonna be. Now, is it a tremendous impact to the town? No, most people probably aren't feeling it, but the employees are. And it's a little unsettling to be operating without knowing your budget, especially for the bigger departments like police, fire, DPW. They don't know how all in to go at this time of year, knowing that their budgets could be on the chopping block. So Travis is having, I don't mind saying this, but he's having a difficult time assessing how much to do in the fall versus spring based off of not knowing what's going to happen with his maintenance budget, as we discussed tonight. So can he do that culvert work in preparation for Chapter 90, or do we have to wait till the spring? So there are impacts on the municipal side and the school side as you're settling this. And I just want to reiterate that there are many regional school districts going through this right now. It's just a tough year for Chapter 70, and these discussions are happening not just here. This isn't unique. A lot of people are in 1/12 budgets right now trying to figure out the best way to fund education, fund municipal.
I think we're in like record territory with how many municipalities are in 1/12 budgets right now.
Yeah, it's not good.
I would suggest Travis wait till spring to do the culverts. Just because, why do it now? Just wait till spring when they're ready to do the work. It'd be less impact to the road anyway, you know, instead of then you'd have to plow over it all winter and do the repair. Just wait till spring.
Just, I don't disagree. For the sake of discussion though, the spring tends to be cleanup time. They're just all out trying to fix what happened in the winter. So if you can do pre-work in the fall, it helps that go smoother. It doesn't mean you can't do it or there isn't a way to figure it out, but there's real world implications to a lot of this. It's just paper for me, but the departments feel it, the employees feel it. It's tough.
To that point, real quick, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but were the bids due today for Route 68 North? Today or tomorrow? They're due.
Yeah, it's this week.
It's this week, anytime. So that's, as you know, that's in preparation for that sort of work to come. But anyway, there's just more of a reality that work is coming, which is good. Sorry.
Should see it before Thanksgiving. Some action.
Yeah.
Clearing roads, putting out cones, etc. No paving or anything, but
Is it the intent of tonight's meeting that we as the two boards go before the town with a specific recommendation, or are we just gonna leave it, you can do this or you can do that?
so the finance committee presents the budget to the town. What you're looking for here under Article 1, which is the amended budget, is what the Board of Selectmen wants to recommend, if anything, to the town. And how you want me to prepare or to give that message to the public.
Okay.
I don't know about anybody else, but I've just been frustrated with thinking about this, because I feel as though we have been, through no fault of our own, been backed into a corner, and are being forced to have to, live with these cuts if we have to make them and so forth. And as it was pointed out already, in terms of the school department, this so-called money that they found came from no cuts, but as we've indicated, but from insurance, et cetera. And yet we're the ones that are struggling and dealing with all this. It just frustrates me that we're put in this position because.
Well, and I'm just gonna, and I couldn't agree more with you. And I went to a lot of the meetings, the school committee there, and I'm not gonna speak for all of them, but I almost can. They are sorry that this is happening, and no better, for lack of a better way to say it, because they feel as though their increase of 1.9% is pretty responsible from their standpoint. It sucks that Hubbardston happens to take, the short end of the stick this year because of the way assessments went, but it's like, it's just a tricky. I hear you about backed in a corner, but it's not. It's just, it's part of the job this year for us to have to make these decisions, I think.
And just so people understand, Josh, could you just explain the why our assessment jumped so much, and like Barry's is level,
Sure.
but
Yeah,
Hubbardston.
so the assessment is based on a number of factors. It's not based solely on student enrollment populations or percentage. So Hubbardston has approximately 25% of the students in the QRSD district. But the assessment is based on factors of the equalized valuation of the town, which is essentially the value of the town, like of the sum of the town's like all of the property in town, as well as the town income, which is again sort of a measure of sort of everyone's income in the town. Those two factors determine the minimum local requirement that each town is required to contribute. Any extra amount beyond, so the QRSD makes their budget. We then calculate the minimum local requirements for each of the 5-member towns. Any amount left over is called an apportionment, and only that amount is divided up amongst based on population enrollment. So, for example, with reassessments of towns that are staggered, if a town has a new reassessment and the value of its town's equalized valuation goes up, that's going to shoot up its minimum local requirement, even if nothing else changes, same number of students and so forth.
Which is what happened.
Towns. Which is probably what happened. I think we were reassessed. Our
We were.
reassessment happened this year, so they're not. The 5 towns are not all on the same year for reassessment.
And if I could just, this town administrator has to do this, put this into a longer term context. The compounding nature of assessment increases are very powerful in terms of the financial forecast for the budget. So even at a very reasonable 1.9% increase, or our budget total with schools, which is about 3% now, you're looking at a $200,000 deficit we're staring down next year with $1 million over 5 years. Plus, if anyone's thinking that 20,000 isn't a lot, I can understand why someone would think that. Our inspectional services department costs $25,000 total for the entire year. Planning board is $20,000, and both our board of health and our board of health is under $20,000 as well. So you're talking entire departments with that type of money. We're just very lean. Most municipalities are. It's not like a badge of honor. It's just $20,000 means humans opening doors for you when you come to town hall in order to get services. And on the flip side, it also means a lot to student achievement and other things that are important in the school. So it's why these small dollar amounts matter long term.
I wanted to make another point. The Cooperative Regional School District will say a lot of it's due to state funding. It's due to state funding. State funding makes up about 50% of their budget, and then obviously the 5-member towns provide the remaining 50% of their budget. So even a 1.9% increase in their total budget, even if state funding was level from year to year, should represent only a 3.8% increase spread amongst the member towns. Mm-hmm. And so we then got much higher than that, and that is because of this sort of instability of how the assessments are done. But a 3.8% increase spread evenly, for the 5-member towns, we'd be looking at a very different number than a 5 or 6% increase.
That would require all the towns doing the assessment at the same time, then, right?
It would, a more balanced sort of.
But that essentially is what would happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it would pay not to do the assessment.
I think
The
law,
reassessment of the property values.
I don't think that's an option, is
I
it?
doubt it.
The DOR must require it.
We'll just have to decrease them.
You just need to align them with the schedule. That's one of our recommendations, assuming that we don't seek to amend the agreement itself by changing that.
So what are you saying?
What-
I didn't hear you.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Sure. That's one of the recommendations that FinCom has for you, is that you talk to the other member towns to see if we can get our
Oh, if we could
assessment schedules in alignment to reduce that
Mhm.
volatility factor. The calculations, the formula that Josh is referring to is called the statutory formula for purposes of determining the assessments, but we don't have to do it that way. we can do it, we could do it 100% based on,
Student enrollment, for
enrollment.
instance.
instead of doing only part of it on
But it would
student
take the
enrollment, but
Sure.
all of
Five
the
towns
towns,
agreeing
but
to
all,
do it,
but
yeah.
all
Everybody's
of the
gotta-
towns must agree to
Right.
amend the,
Sure.
the
Regional
agreement to
agreement.
do that.
Yeah.
That's the other approach we recommend, at least talking about, to see if
Mhm.
that's a possibility.
By population, we would have paid the most this year, but it wouldn't have been, Hardwick is at a negative 3% assessment, we're at a 6. Like, that spread is just hard to plan for.
Right.
If you're Hardwick and your assessment's 5% next year, and you were negative 3% this year,
You're in trouble.
how do you forecast?
That's right. So, anyway, there's a couple ways to try to smooth this stuff out.
Mhm.
Neither of which are available
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
on Monday.
Okay,
So should we make a motion to approve the recommendation of the FinCom?
if we feel that's what we wanna do, then absolutely, I think that's the next step, right? You think you explained all the differences from the original town meeting, to the one that's recommended by the FinCom for the special town meeting?
Yes, they've been explained.
Okay. Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
And can you clarify what we are actually agreeing with or disagreeing with?
We're
What-
gonna agree with their recommendation to
Of
go
not-
with meeting them in the middle.
It's actually
not
more,
take-
more than middle, but
Not taking what is being asked us right now.
Short of the full assessment.
I'll second the motion.
So you wanna meet at what number?
4737695 is what we.
What was it, 14,000
Yeah,
less than
14,000
the-
less. I think that was
roughly,
on
it's a little
47.
more than 14.
What
but-
percent, what percentage of that?
4737695.
6 point, just over 6%.
An increase from last year. Sorry, I should have this number.
I second that.
All right, discussion, we're in that now.
So school committee wants 6.31, finance committee recommends 6.
Ish.
Is it,
Right.
are you figuring that out,
See,
Ryan?
6.01 or 6.03, something like
So
that.
we did.
Just
6.01.
to squeak over 6.
You have a number, right, can you figure it out?
So for last year, so fiscal 19, we approved 4493506.
Mhm.
And so if we're gonna go to 47, let me write the 4737 695, so it's gonna be
So we're
equals
going a little bit over
this
6 then, right?
minus that. It's gonna be 5.7%, it looks like, over year, so from
Yeah.
5.7, yeah,
Not 6.
Sorry.
5.7?
5.75%.
Okay. Alright, so up from the 5 that we had originally.
We had some of that, okay.
And what's the dollar value between those two numbers?
14 something.
14293.
Between 575 and 631. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion? There's a motion and a second on the select board's, discussion on whether or not to recommend this, the FinCon's number at special town meeting tomorrow. So, any further discussion?
I'd like to say if we needed to grab another 10,000, if it came up, with the Route 68 North project coming up, the police department is going to have more details than they can fill, and there'll be plenty of money to cover any shortfalls they had. In hours, you could take 10,000 off police wages if you needed it.
I don't think that would be a wise move, but
What's that?
I don't think that would be a wise move, but
All right, just making the
Mm.
idea, giving the idea.
Okay. Any further ideas or discussion?
Didn't I see somewhere along the line that we were gonna buy a dump truck? What's the cost of the dump truck?
It was,
But you already explained that.
That doesn't
Nine.
actually.
You weren't
He,
here.
he wasn't.
It's not pertinent.
It would
No,
not,
it
doesn't
is,
help
it
us.
is.
it is,
It
so.
is-ish.
Yeah, 95,000.
it's pertinent in the
It's
sense that
an-
it might come up, but.
It's a good question. So the dump truck is a capital expense, so we use free cash to fund capital expenses. It's a one-time expense. So if we were to use dump truck money and put it in the operating budget,
Mhm.
it would create a hole next year, because we're using a one-time fund to increase something that recurs over the years.
Okay.
So people do typically say, don't buy the capital and fund the operating budget, but it just creates a problem down the road.
Seeing as we already added 100,000 of
We
free
already have
cash
100,000
into our
cash.
operating
Mhm.
budget.
Yeah.
We need to stop using one-time revenue to fund recurring expenses, otherwise, one year, if we don't have free cash, we'll have to cut the 100,000 we have in right now, or the cost of the dump truck, say.
Okay.
So it's strongly recommend that you use one-time funds for one-time purchases and really control costs in your operating budget.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of recommending, as the select board, the FinCom's recommended, amount for the, special town meeting, say aye, yes?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. aye.
unanimous, okay.
Okay, Article 2, also related to the schools. So we were, just going over the history again, invited into the MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority program for repairs of the Hubbardston Center School roof. So the schools applied to be accepted into this program. The benefit of this program is they help you repair a big thing, like the roof, a multi-million-dollar project. And right now we're slated to get just under 60% reimbursement from the state back, which is a big coupon, if you will.
Mhm.
So this board voted in June that if we were accepted into that study, that we would put it before town meeting voters to fund the feasibility study. So the feasibility study would look at how much this project's gonna cost, what would be entailed, and prepare it for bid. In talking to the state, they're recommending that we appropriate up to $60,000 in order to accomplish the feasibility study. They do not think it'll cost that, but they just wanna make sure we don't have to vote again, cause that would get us booted out of the project. We're recommending, because of the way we're closing the year and other free cash considerations, that this money come from the Municipal Capital Stabilization Fund, which is a reserve fund we have for these types of purposes. So we'd be appropriating 60 and funding the feasibility study if this was approved. So looking to see if the board is going to recommend or not this article at town meeting tomorrow.
I make a motion, we recommend that article too.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, discussion, I guess, I'd just to say something towards this, I mean, as you already sort of stated, this is, I think for a lot of towns or municipalities who have a lot more money that have, you know, well-funded municipal capitalization, this is like almost just a formality, right? So it just sort of comes out of it, us, for every single thing we spend, we have to really talk about it. But to be able to get such a significant, contribution from the state on something like this, it just feels like it's
Foolish
something we have to do.
not to do it.
Right.
Yep.
So this isn't a want, it's a need. The center school roof needs to be repaired. For anyone who's been in the school, there's buckets in the lobby, it's leaking, it has to be fixed at some point. This bill will come due. So it's whether or not we wanna take advantage of it now, or we're gonna get reimbursement, or risk losing that reimbursement and having to fix it at some other date. Could that be 10 years from now? Sure, but it's the idea that once you're invited in the study, you should take advantage of it.
So in further discussion, the question may come up, okay, well, now we paid for the feasibility study, and yeah, great, it's worth X amount of money, and then we have to, then the state kicks in 60%, how do we pay for, in the future, the 40% that we have to come up with? And that, if that question comes up, our answer is debt exclusion, or override, or magic pixie dust.
Or you can add, so we will have the ability to add debt to the budget in a couple years, because some other debt's falling off, so there's
Roads.
definitely options.
Okay.
You can put off borrowing for a little bit, it's not the best way to do it, but if we have to fund it, we will. We have to repair the roof.
Okay.
It has to be done in order to house our students safely, so
Is there another solar farm coming online?
I hope so, and if you know I'm sending my way.
I thought there was one in Williamsville. Is that still a go?
Just everything right now is that it's, you know, this question's been asked, but I don't know of any formal applications yet.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, if we appropriate the 60,000, but we don't need it all, what happens with the remainder?
So that would fall back into, so you appropriate it, let's say it's 40,000, there's 20,000 left, that falls into free cash the next year.
Okay.
And then you'll probably hear me recommending to you during this budget cycle that we should put the 60,000 back into stabilization from free cash so that we have that reserve again. Cause our target is 1% or about 100,000.
Did you mean to say the 20,000 balance or 60,000 total, just out of free cash? So it'd be the 20 that's still there plus an additional 40 to get that back.
Yeah, so it all falls into the general free cash bucket and then
Okay.
you appropriate it again, but you could look at it, taking the 20 and then adding the 40 that we spent.
And the ideal number in free cash is $60,000,
The ideal.
based on our total budget. What'd you say, 1% of the free cash?
1% is about 100 grand.
Okay.
So we want to try and keep that there. Being if free cash falls off, we can still fund some capital with that reserve fund.
Okay.
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I don't have it.
Yes. Are we, excuse me,
Sure.
Can we adjourn?
you're all set
We
with
are.
this, right? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Thank you. Adjourned at
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
8:15.
Thank you.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have a good night. I don't have any other items. Anybody else at the table here have anything else they want to bring up?
Who's in charge of the flag at the rec field? Is that Parks?
The Little League?
I am.
They
Why?
need a
What do you
new
need?
one. They need
All
a
right,
new one near the
thanks.
bandstand.
We
What's
were
the
gonna,
Little
we
League
were
one?
gonna
Is on-
put 2 new flags up on field day.
Oh, okay.
Have the scouts do it for the town.
Good. I was looking at that one. I said that thing's, it's time for a new
Yes,
one.
I'm
Good.
shredded.
But did you notice the Little League one is up and there's nothing going on?
They never
this
took
time?
it down.
Yeah, I saw it, I drove by it this morning, I said, that's funny, why is that flag there? And then not, the season's long over, the flag is still up there, just.
That's it.
Chris is in charge. That's the answer.
Okay, anything else? Public press, any questions? None?
Oh, wait,
Move to
wait a
adjourn.
minute.
Okay.
Jeff, why don't you think that's a good idea to cut 10,000 off the police wages? If I mean, they're gonna have more details for Route 68 North than they could possibly fill.
Well, possibly.
They'll be bringing police from other towns to fill
I-
those.
I just think it would, morale-wise, and send a wrong message to the police department and the other folks. That's just my own feeling on that. No disrespect intended.
No, yeah, I was wondering why.
Didn't think it would be wise to go that route, but.
I'll second Jeff's motion to adjourn.
Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Aye.